Welcome back to Lyrics Green Room. I'm Beth Adele, the Director of Marketing. Here is where you're going to hear all about the behind-the-scenes workings of Oklahoma's premier professional theater. This episode is extremely exciting because we're going to hear from the man of lyric theater, producing artistic director Michael Barron, speaking all about the New Works Initiative and why and how he brings art to this area. We'll be right back. This episode of Lyrics Green Room is brought to you by Noble McIntyre of McIntyre Law.
I'm Noble McIntyre of McIntyre Law. For years, my family and I have supported the professional theater of Lyric Theater of Oklahoma.
For more than 50 years, Lyric has produced grand musicals at the Civic Center each summer and incredible productions at the intimate Plaza Theater the rest of the year.
We also foster arts education with the Thelma Gaylord Academy and our musical interactive, which has reached over 35,000 Oklahoma students this year alone.
For information about tickets, classes, or how to invest in its vision, visit lyrictheaterokc.com.
For those of you who want to follow Lyric Theater a little bit more, you may find us on Twitter at Lyric Theater, or Instagram at Lyric Theater, or Facebook at Lyric Theater of Oklahoma. If you are interested in tickets or information about our academy, please give us a call at 405-524-9312 or visit us at lyrictheaterokc.com.
Let's just start with, you're in New York, you're talking to Disney. So many people love Make-A-Wish, or When You Wish.
When you wish.
When You Wish. And the secret got out pretty early from the story we heard from our last episode. You're in talking to people and folks from out of town spot you. You're famous. You've done shows all over the world. And then when you're in town talking to people, somebody from Lyric who's worked with Lyric or been at Lyric spots you in New York City.
Oh, that's true. I was in a meeting in one of the rooms, and an OCU graduate now works there, I think, in the PR department. And he walked by and saw me, and he was mouthed, what are you doing here? I was like, I can't tell you just
It was a
yet.
secret trip, right?
Yeah. We were still negotiating, what the project would be. But yeah, it was pretty exciting to...
And how long ago was that?
That was a year and a half ago. So if this all started, I would say around November 2000, what year is it? 15. With, a few meetings, and I was referred very kindly to one of my friends runs a theater in Utah, where they had done a very different version of this show at an outdoor theater. And so he thought Disney might be interested in doing the show inside and seeing how it would play and how it would be created for a more traditional space. And he put me in contact with David Scott at Disney. And very quickly, the wheels were in motion. He had seen a couple of shows that I had directed without knowing it was me. He knew of Lyric's reputation, and we then decided to schedule to do some version of this show in the summer of 17, which just happened, after doing a workshop in the fall of 16. So it's been a while, but actually it's been a pretty fast process for new works. New musicals usually take about 10 years to develop. This one was faster because there was already a blueprint of some sort, and I think we were ready to produce it. Disney really wanted it to be on stage to see what the show was, so that they can, as soon as possible, get it out there to license to theaters around the country that are chomping at the bit to do anything Disney, but particularly this show.
What we're talking about is Disney's When You Wish.
Oh, thanks, Beth.
It's a musical that Lyric just produced, and it was at the Civic Center July 11th through the 15th. And if you didn't see it, you were one of the very few, and it's a pity because it was very, very magical. But Disney's When You Wish was the fourth, I believe, production in Lyric Theater's New Works initiative that, Michael, you have undertaken. What made you begin the journey of taking conceptions to productions at Lyric Theater?
Sure. Well, all through my whole career, I've always worked on new plays, a few new musicals, and so that was in my background. Particularly the theater I worked at before Lyric is called Signature Theater. It's in Washington, D.C. And their signature is Stephen Sondheim, but their other signature really is doing world premiere musicals. So being there for about 5 years, I learned the ins and outs of what it takes to bring artists together to produce musicals for the stage on all levels, from a reading to a full production. And when I got this job at Lyric, the venues are so beautiful, the production quality was so high, the audiences are so intelligent and ripe for new works. When I got the job, I told them that would be one of my goals. And so it happened pretty quickly. Lyric has a long history of developing actors. A lot of famous people got their start here. Kristen Chenoweth, Megan Mullally, lots of people on Broadway. A lot of directors have gotten their starts here, set designers, costume designers, but no writers have, because Lyric has relied on material that's been produced other places. So I felt that other places should do material that was produced at Lyric first. We certainly had the facilities, the talent, and the wherewithal to do it. So how the choosing of the material started was we're members of the National Alliance for Musical Theater.
Which, by the way, you're the vice president of the board of directors.
I am the vice president.
Yes. I mean, a little national reach there.
Yes. It's a great organization. And essentially the organization is made up of Broadway producers, commercial producers, regional theaters around the country, but everyone and the world, actually, everyone that's doing musicals. And what we do is we get together and we not only talk about works that are known, for example, Guys and Dolls, how well is Guys and Dolls playing right now? And we actually talk about, when we plan our seasons, to make sure that we're planning responsibly, ticket sales and things like that. But every fall, they host a New Works Festival. And so what we get to see are 8 works in process. There's concert versions. They last about 45 minutes. The talent in them is all direct from Broadway because it happens during the day. So they're cast from people that are on Broadway at night. And the whole festival is curated. So the musicals that get chosen are chosen by a committee. And we get to see these new shows, many of which have gone on to great success, like The Drowsy Chaperone this year on Broadway. Come From Away is a big hit. That's from our festival. Memphis was one of those shows. And so we go to that festival, and then what we do as theaters is that we meet afterward and figure out a trajectory or a plan for development for the show. So we get... Essentially, they'll say the title of the musical, and then we all kind of share our opinions on it and what we can offer them. Some theaters can offer a residency for the composers. Some theaters want immediately to do a full production. Sometimes by the time it gets to the festival, Broadway producers are already involved, and they actually don't even need us anymore. It happens that fast. So from that festival, the first one that I was really drawn to was a musical called Triangle, and it was a political love story about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in New York. And it sounds odd and maybe not interesting, but as musicals tend to be, when you see them, the really good ones make you feel something. And even in this 45-minute version, it brought me to tears, most of the audience to tears. And it spoke to me in so many ways. I'm Jewish. The story was about Jewish people in it for lots of reasons. So then what happened was I went right up to the composers and I said, hey, you don't know me. I run Lyric Theater of Oklahoma. I want to start this New Works program, and I want you guys to be the first musical. For us out in Oklahoma, it costs just as much to bring out an entire team and do a workshop almost as to do a full production. And there's plenty of new musicals that have been developed to death and are ready for a first production. So I felt what Lyric has to offer is that first production. So I said to the guys, hey, I loved your piece. I love the music. I love the story. I think we do a great job. And would you let us do the show? They were very excited and said, talk to my agent. So I talked to the agent, and the agent pretty much said, no, we don't want the musical to start in Oklahoma. I don't know you. You don't know my writers. This show wants to go to New York. She had a trajectory for the show, which I understood. But I said to her, hey, it's November. How about I call you in February? And if no one else has bitten on this musical, will you let me do it in Oklahoma? She goes, yes. So I called her back in February. I said, hey, what's going on with Triangle, that musical? And she said, nothing, it's yours. So I said, great. And at that point, it just became about budgeting and making sure that each new musical we do has a mix of cast members from New York that might have already worked on the show, as well as local performers. It does cost money to bring out the composer, the writers. It costs money to orchestrate the shows. These shows usually have not been orchestrated, meaning they were only written on piano. So they need to be other instruments need to be added. So, for example, at the Plaza, usually what works well is about a 6-person orchestra. So we have to find an orchestrator to orchestrate the musical. That is a very hefty cost. And then another person you have to pay is a copyist that actually writes and copies each musician's part, which is a skill in itself, so that the page turn happens where the musician needs it to happen. So there's lots of people involved. It's a very expensive proposition, which I knew. But I said, to my board in particular, I said, hey, in the summers, we're doing Mary Poppins, we're doing Les Mis, we're doing Oklahoma. These are all big sellers. That will always be our bread and butter. But I think for us to get some national attention and to really allow our audience to see art being created from the ground up, we need to start doing new musicals. They instantly said yes. And since then, that process has replicated itself 3 times, and then the Disney process was very different in many ways because the music's already written. But yeah, we've done it 4 times in 4 seasons, and my goal still is to have a new musical every year. So next season we have one planned, and we're already on the lookout for the one for 2019.
So you said developed to death, but you're breaking eggs to make an omelet here, right? I mean, even though it's developed to a point, you're doing things that haven't been done by anybody else.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we by doing the production, that's the amazing part. That's the premiere. You would be surprised. I mean, there are hundreds of musicals that get readings, get even demos recorded on CD with famous singers that never get produced. Usually because, for who knows, many reasons. One, they could be too expensive. They could not speak to someone. They could, by the time they're finished, which happens a lot, they're already out of date. It takes many, many years to write these shows. And you got to be careful because the subject matter might have played itself out by the time the show's done. So because I think in the Oklahoma spirit, I was like, we're not messing around. I'm just going to ask people and tell them we will do your show in Oklahoma, and this is when, and you'll be supported. And because of that, very quickly, the series has succeeded and been established.
You took a bite out of this in Oklahoma, and you've already faced some of those initial reactions. So it is pretty risky to take on the program. And in order to take on that risk, you have to foresee and continually realize the benefits on many fronts. Can you talk to us a little bit about the benefits of producing a new work, and not just for developing the writer that you've already mentioned?
Sure. Well, one, it invigorates the lyric staff in every capacity, because we have artists creating a new show in-house in Oklahoma. And that is something spectacular. I mean, as much as, and I love West Side Story, which is going on right now. It's an amazing work, but Leonard Bernstein is not anywhere to be seen. And so what we're doing is interpreting what's already on the page. To have writers in residence is so exciting. It invigorates the local actors and artists and designers, and it opens up Oklahoma to the New York world, and changes perceptions. I think people, when they first think I'm going to do a new musical in Oklahoma, probably when I started it, were nervous. Why should I go to the middle of the country to develop my show? Will they understand it? Will the notes I get from the audience be valuable? Is this a smart audience? But right away, that's already happened, and we are one of the leading venues now in the country for developing new work, because it's a safe space outside of New York, but the quality is so high, and the work that they get to do on the show is the same work that they'd be doing in New York, just much cheaper and out of the critic's eye.
So the 4 works that we've done thus far have been Triangle, Bernice Bobs Her Hair, Man and Wife, and then recently Disney's When You Wish. What type of feedback have you gotten from Oklahoma, the patrons, the audience members, about these endeavors?
Well, I think the first one we did, there was a lot of excitement. We do a post-show discussion after each of these shows to get the audience feedback so they can meet the writers. And I think that first one, it was just about the process. A lot of the questions the audience asked were like, why are you here? How did you do this? How long did it take you to write the show? But now that we've done so many, the amount of audience members staying after the show has grown to a huge amount. They fill out the surveys with care. The writers read them all, and our audiences know that their feedback actually does matter. Particularly, I always ask the audience, what wasn't clear, what was confusing, perhaps. Because the writers, they've been working in this world so long. So I think now that our audiences know that their feedback does matter, that the shows we're doing here are having a future life. That first musical, Triangle, went on to have a hugely successful production in San Francisco and won Best New Musical in San Francisco. I'm sure it's going to have a New York production. And in every one of those programs around the country, it says at the bottom of the front page, originally developed at Lyric Theater of Oklahoma. And I think our audiences take pride in that. And they want to see what composers are thinking, what their thoughts are, what they're writing about. Which is, I think, always exciting, as opposed to the conversation of most shows, which is, I liked it or I didn't like it.
Which leads me to this question. If you see 40 Broadway shows a year, aren't you going to be a little bit harder in your critique of a new program as opposed to come to the middle of the country? I mean, we're not rubes here. These are people who appreciate live performance, but they're going to have a little bit different perspective, especially for a new work. Isn't that something that the writers would really crave to have, would be first impressions and visceral reactions?
For sure. I mean, also, once a show runs in New York, the future life of it and the majority of the money, if it's not on Broadway, the writers are going to make is when the production is done around the country. So it's actually even more valuable for them to see how an Oklahoma audience is going to perceive their show than a very insular New York audience. there's been plenty of shows in New York that have been huge successes that have never been done outside the city, and vice versa. I think there's a balance that there's plenty of shows I think that maybe an Oklahoma audience would enjoy that would be too sincere for a New York audience. So what I do when I choose these new musicals is I try to find that balance of something that I know our audiences are going to find interesting and like, but it will also challenge them. Yeah.
You sort of already hinted about the 2018 number 5 new work. Is there anything that you can tell us without letting the cat out of the bag entirely about that new work of what we might be seeing in 2018?
Well, I'll tell you all about it, actually. Why not?
That's exciting.
Well, because
this is breaking news.
It is.
Well, it's breaking news to a lot of people.
It's called When We're Gone, and which is an interesting story in itself. That was not the original title that I saw the workshop of. It was called Mortality Play at that time, because it's a play on the morality play, Everyman of medieval times. So, and those plays usually had an everyman who decided he had choices, whether he wanted to join the church, wanted to run the inn. So what these writers have done, have created a rock musical that sounds as fresh as anything on the radio today, or even cooler than that. I would compare it to Green Day or maybe the Who's Tommy in some ways. It's a serious rock score, and the play still takes place in 1390 during the plagues in London. So Todd, the main character, is deciding whether he wants to be a rock star, run the inn, or become a priest like his dad wants.
As you do in Plague London. In
Plague London, in dealing with death. But, the story totally resonates today. Any young person still has, do I follow what my parents want for me, what I want for me, what my girlfriend wants for me? It still resonates. The exciting part about this show is that it's told through an amazing rock score. We were very lucky to get it here in Oklahoma. It already had a really successful concert workshop at Joe's Pub, which is one of the leading venues in New York City. But I gave them my pitch and said, this is where it needs to happen. We've done shows like this, Spring Awakening. We do Rocky Horror every 3 years. My audiences at Lyric like rock musicals. And so they were game. And then, of course, as you meet these people and get to know them even better, Scotty Arnold, who wrote the music for it, his sister happens to live here. She's a gynecologist at OU Medical. Who knew? And you start finding different ties to the piece and why it should be done here. But as far as pushing the limits, the first one we did was, I would say, a period piece along the lines of a musical version of Glass Menagerie that was Triangle. Then we did Bernice Bobs Her Hair, which was an old-fashioned kind of college musical based on an F. Scott Fitzgerald story. Then we did Man and Wife, which was a good old dating musical. And then, of course, the Disney is appealing to everybody. This show, is littered with swear words, sexual situations. It's very modern as far as how particularly people in the Plaza District talk. And I think what the Plaza District has become is a reflection of what this show is. Not always do our shows at the Plaza reflect the people walking down the street, and this one certainly does. I think anyone that's at Empire Pizza, at Saints, at the Mule, if they came into this show, they would see themselves and love it.
The Plaza District is a fun place to be and watch. And we're on the board of Friends of the Plaza, right? Mm-hmm. So we go to these events, and it is really kind of what Oklahoma City's become. I mean, it's a big change. When you want to know where changes are in this town, go to Plaza.
Well, a good example of that is this year we did Assassins, which was a risky show on my part to do. It's by Stephen Sondheim about people that tried to kill the president, a musical. And it's adult and very controversial. And we sold around 1,500 single tickets. Our bread and butter, which is downtown, which is I program $1 Million Quartet with Elvis, Johnny Cash. You think that's a no-brainer? That sold 1,900 single tickets. So the audience for the Plaza Theater and what we're doing there, and more thought-provoking shows that deal with politics, religion, race, what it really is like to live in this city, this country, this world. That's where the Plaza is happening.
Did you have a program like that 5 years ago, 10 years ago?
No. And I purposely have built the audience to go that direction. The first thing at the Plaza I wanted to do was bring families down to that, what was a scary neighborhood, which is why we did Christmas Carol there the first year. And I wanted that to be an annual tradition at that theater to bring families down to say, hey, this is a safe place. And then programming-wise, what I tried to do was find shows that the summer audience might also enjoy, but are just smaller. I would say like The Odd Couple, Some Enchanted Evening, a Rodgers and Hammerstein review. And those are lovely shows, but we've grown as a theater, and we're able to do a much wider variety of shows. So what I like to say is, as opposed to doing something for, it's something for, we offer something for everyone, but not everything is for everyone. I fully expect that, some of our summer audiences are not going to want to come see Rocky Horror. Our Rocky Horror audience is not going to want to probably see Disney's When You Wish. I don't want to judge. I don't know. What I do know is that everything we do is of the highest quality, and that we're the largest professional theater in the state. And part of our mission, and our main mission, is to enrich the lives of all Oklahomans. And all Oklahomans are not the same. So when I plan a season, I look at all of that. And new works have run, I think, is a good example of that. I've had new works that appeal to children as well as adults.
Can we get back to Disney for just a moment? We were talking about network television at my house this week. We were joking about how network television is just awful. Except we have a show that we watch during the week, ABC has, called Blackish.
It's my favorite show.
It's funny. It's beyond funny.
It's my favorite comedy.
It's a great show. And it really is America. And I saw the rerun the other night. They were at Disney, one of the Disney properties. And it was incredible. Of course, what was happening at the Mitchell house is we were like, well, when are we going? When are we taking Joey to what's the next venue? So working with Disney licensing, that must have been a trip like nothing you've ever done. You've done north of 85 shows all over this country. Was this the first time with Disney?
Yes, for sure.
And the lessons you took away, or things that you like, wow, I didn't know that?
Yes, for sure. It's interesting, being around a company that is so specific. Not that I expected anything different, but everything, when you're talking with Disney, everything is about Disney, as it should be. As a theater artist, I get to direct all kinds of shows, and after every month is a different story about a different place. But when dealing with Disney, you really get to understand, one, how proud they are of the material, how much they protect it, and make sure that Walt's vision is always first and foremost, and they really, really care that what they put out there is of the highest quality in all aspects. And also, particularly working with this show, I think in turn, as a general theater artist, I opened their eyes, I would say, a little bit, in that, for example, Princess and the Frog was not in the show originally, and that's the animated feature that features a black princess. And it's not one of their most successful animated features by any means. However, it is their only black princess. And I felt that if we're going to do a songbook that reflects America today, that she should be in there. Now, of course, we don't do 10 songs from it. There's only one. But I think commercially, it wasn't the best choice. But knowing what an audience wants to see and knowing that I have little black girls in my audience that want to see their princess on stage. Knowing also that the children in the audience don't always gravitate toward the race of the princess on stage. So, for example, at one of the shows, there was a little white girl wearing the black princess's dress. In turn, Belle in our production was an African-American actress. And we did have a parent who has a biracial child say that when Belle showed up, her eyes just opened so wide and said, "I can't believe what I'm seeing." And we arranged, she wanted to meet Belle that looked like her backstage the next night. So because we do theater and we tell stories and I care about my audience as much as they care about their audiences, I think it was a really good match. And which I also admire about what the partnership was that everything they said that they would do happened. They said they were going to bring out people from all over the country in different parts of the of Disney Theatricals, the company, to come see the show, and they did fly out and see the show. They did provide supporting. Usually I have to pay for orchestrations. They provided the orchestrations. They provided Jim Abbott, who's one of the world's top orchestrators. He was in residence for 2 of the 3 weeks of rehearsal at Lyric. And in turn, all I kept saying was, I will come back to Lyric Theater anytime I work for free. This is a dream place to work, which made all of us very proud. And I know the show isn't perfect, but the goal was for them to love this version of the show and want to keep working on this version, as opposed to giving every theater just a bunch of songs and say have fun. And they have loved this version. So right now, the next step is to see where in the country we might work on the show one more time and maybe rearrange some songs, add some newer properties like Moana to the show, things like that. But it was great to be, as a not-for-profit, be treated with such respect by a very large corporation. And they were very thankful for the work that we did. And I was thankful that they let us do it.
Michael keeps anticipating all the questions that I want to ask him. And so he just keeps expounding on everything. And I can just listen to you talk about it over and over and over again. I will put in a plug, though. May I put in a plug, Scott?
Please.
So after Michael discussed the next new work that's going to be produced at Lyric Theater, unfortunately, we need to wait about a little longer than a year to see it. But everyone can buy single tickets starting October 11th. Of this year. I have to say things like that.
October 11th for the next new work when we're gone.
October 11th, you can buy single tickets for When We're Gone. That is hits the stage September of 2018.
I will tell you a quick story I forgot about the title, that it was called Mortality Play. And I told the writers, I said, because I'm also there to give them advice, and they're going to do what they want. It's their lifeblood, and they've worked, it's their sweat and tears on this show. But I said, I would really consider changing the title for Mortality Play. One, every person that will be calling our Lyric box office will go Mortality Play, but I thought it was a musical. And that is right away a little confusing. And Alana, who wrote the book, said, but I love the play on Morality Play. And I said, I do too. But you have to remember that you and I and 3 other people love theater history and see that connection. What you don't want to do is distance an audience before they've had a chance to see your new work. And the show is fun and it's funny and it's much more appealing than that intellectual title of Mortality Play, which they've had now for about 5 years, and it already has, got some traction. So I said, give me a list of new titles and we'll see what we come up with. And When We're Gone was on there. And I said, that sounds like a rock song to me. And it doesn't give me too many preconceived notions. But it's not scary and it's not overly intellectual. And it doesn't, as an audience member, think I have to know something before I go to see the show. But of course I said to the caveat, I said, the great thing about being in Oklahoma is that if the title is in play and you don't like it, go back to whatever title you want. You can change it back. Nothing is permanent. I just know in Oklahoma, it will be much harder to sell tickets to Mortality Play than it will be to When We're Gone, a new rock musical.
Can I ask about the art versus commercial? As you've mentioned it a couple of times, which is you have to be true to the aspect of you have to support these live performances. You also have a board. You also have people that want to come see the programs. But you've also, in the last, as we've discussed, the last 4 or 5 years, get a little edgier because a lot of people like edgy and they like to go explore new boundaries. For you, as the producing artistic director, how do you decide which way I'm going to go? Because you're planning 2, 3, 4 years in advance. And as you spoke earlier, sometimes new products are 4 or 5 years, maybe longer, coming to the market. By then, they're out of date because they may be taboo subject matter. How do you look into the crystal ball and figure all of this out, commercial versus art, and what your audience may be wanting in a couple, 3 years?
Well, I would hope that everything we do is artistic first. I'm very well aware of the commercial track record of many musicals. I know Mary Poppins is going to sell a lot of tickets. There was a beloved film. There was a huge Broadway run. It hasn't been in Oklahoma very much. So I know if I program that, it's going to sell pretty well. People always want to see West Side Story. They have great memories of it. They want to share it with their kids. But all of those are really, really good shows. But what I do is we very methodically budget out how many tickets we're going to sell based on the data of many, many seasons past. So, for example, for $1 Million Quartet, we looked at what that show was going to sell and compared it to Dreamgirls, which is, about Motown, compared it to Buddy Holly, which is about Buddy Holly. Similar shows in the same slot, in the same venue, saw how they sold, and producing-wise, figured out how many tickets it would sell. It still is never perfect. Some things become huge hits you never thought they would. Some shows you thought everyone would come see, they don't. But what I have found is that those variables usually have very little to do with lyric theater. They have more to do with I have to plan a season and announce it long before Garth Brooks announces he's doing 4 shows on his world tour the same weekend of one of ours.
Sure.
So, it's an educated guess. And the responsibility part comes where at the end of every year, we budget the next year based on how well we did this year. So if we are behind in money for some reason, we will cut our expenses so that our budget always balances at the end of the year. And then we'll start from that number the next year. However, we are becoming more successful. And when I started at Lyric, we were a $3.2 million organization, and now we're about 4.4 in 7 years.
What do you attribute that to?
I would say the exciting programming, the fact that I've made the theater year-round, where it used to be a summer theater, and the Plaza Theater. No, hands down, the success of the Plaza Theater has pushed us to a new level, opened us up to new patrons, and it's economically the best place to do theater because we own it. It's bought and paid for, and we can run shows longer there, which means word of mouth helps drive ticket sales. The summer will always be glorious on that huge scale, but we have very little word of mouth because we only can run a week. And that will always be the hard part about that venue, but that still outweighs how glorious it is to see a cast of 42 with Fiddler on the Roof and a full orchestra. We will always do that. That's It's what Lyric was known for. But it's exciting that the Plaza has taken off, and that actually that venue reflects where Broadway is going. I would say most new Broadway shows fit in the Plaza much better than they do in the Civic Center, because economics also on Broadway have changed. And for example, we're going to do the Tony Award-winning Best Musical Fun Home at the Plaza next season. It doesn't belong to the Civic. It's a smaller show.
If you haven't been to the Plaza Theater, it's just glorious. You use the word glorious. It's wonderful there. What can Oklahoma City and the state do to better support what you and your team are doing at Lyric? Because it's magnificent. And it's all about, our last episode was about education. But how can we educate Oklahomans about what a great venue this is, and what great artists we have, what great productions? If they haven't been there, I can't say it enough. If you haven't seen a show in the Plaza District, in the Plaza Theater, you've missed out on something you'll remember your entire life.
I think the biggest thing is our Lyric supporters are strong, tried and true. They are wonderful, very steady supporters since 1963, that group. As like we've all said, the city has changed. There's so many new people living here. And what I think should happen is they say, Oklahoma City, welcome. We're known for the Thunder, oil, natural gas, and amazing arts. And our main theater is Lyric Theater of Oklahoma. The Philharmonic we have, and the ballet. But I think if that is all tied into the conversation, that will always help Lyric, because then they'll check us out. They'll see what show interests them, and they'll bring their families. We have an academy, so their kids, we're able to feed their souls and teach them all of this great art themselves. But I think anyone new that moves here, they need to. It would be amazing if in that statement next to the Thunder, we'd say Lyric Theater as well, because Russell Westbrook is just as famous in basketball as Kristen Chenoweth is in musical theater, and Kristen Chenoweth is from Lyric, just as Russell Westbrook's from the Thunder, and not everybody knows that in the state, and I think they should. It's that good. And I can say that because I'm not from Oklahoma, even though I consider myself an Oklahoman already. But I've only been here 7 years, and the minute I got here, I could not believe how good and the quality of what we do at Lyric. It's unmatched, and I've worked I came from DC and New York and Boston and Chicago, and Lyric is just as strong as the top theaters in those cities. But if people don't come, it's a tough sell.
You don't go there, you can't see it.
That's right.
And that's just to take some time. And if you didn't listen to episode 1 about the educational programs, the Academy, go back and check out that podcast, because that was fun about what's happening there. I suppose we should ask for the near future what's next for people that listen to this production and are all ready to go see something at Lyric.
Well, we have announced our 2018 season. We're on the calendar year. So the real quick rundown is we're opening with Crowns, which is a gospel musical about the African-American church experience. And the crowns are the big hats the church ladies wear. It's a beautiful, beautiful musical that will have its Oklahoma premiere here. Then we're doing Fun Home, which won the Tony Award for Best Musical. It's a groundbreaking musical about a lesbian cartoonist and her childhood growing up with a very interesting father, and their house was a funeral home. So that's that show. And then the summer, where, is really for everybody. We're doing Disney's Freaky Friday, which is a brand new musical they wrote. It'll be a co-production with Dallas Theater Center. So the show will run here a week and then run for 2 months in Dallas for the first time. Then we're doing Hello Dolly, which I would say is one from Lyrics Vaults. We've done it before, but certainly not like this. And Ashley Wells is directing, who is Lyrics Associate Artistic Director and was in Hello Dolly with Carol Channing on Broadway. So that's...
Well, she didn't share that with us last
podcast. Yeah,
she's modest.
So that show is near and dear to her heart, will be quite special. And then, everyone loves ABBA, and we're doing Mamma Mia, which is a great opportunity for particularly OU, OCU, UCO, all the college kids to be in that show and get an opportunity to really shine and have a great time, and audiences have a great time with that one. And then the fall, we come back with the world premiere of When We're Gone, and Christmas Carol rounds it out. And then there's one last show.
That's right.
I know. We've started this for the second year now. We're doing Theater for Young Audiences shows, and we're doing Junie B. Jones, the quick version of a Theater for Young Audience. We did a James and the Giant Peach this year, but they're shows that happen during the day for, I would say, the age group of 4 to 12. And they're about an hour long, performed by adults, professional adults. And it really is a beautiful primer for kids to come to the theater for the first time, see usually books that they've read in school come to life, and get them to fall in love with theater like we do.
And for the person who listens to this podcast and immediately wants to know what they can do to get a taste of lyric theater, especially the Plaza Theater, we've got Rock of Ages opening October 11th in the Plaza Theater of this year. And so come rock out with us, have a great date night. If you like 80s music, and who does not, if you secretly jam out to hair bands, Journey, Styx, etc., you need to come to Rock of Ages. And we run for 3 weeks, starting October 11th, and then back with the family again with the 2018 edition of Lyrics: A Christmas Carol. And that starts immediately after Thanksgiving.
Well, Michael Barron.
It never ends.
It never ends. It actually is mind-boggling to think about. And you have your staff and the team is there's not 8,000 people down there. Okay. It is a hard-working crew.
But they're so talented.
They are so talented. And
we all love what we do. I mean, to get to tell stories for a living is amazing. And the main reason people in Oklahoma should come to Lyric is that they will be better for it. You'll be a better person.
Here. Well, you're major league, man. I mean, you really are.
Oh,
and
thanks.
Oklahoma's lucky to have you here doing what you do. And we want to let people know what all happens down there. And people are busy. But we just got some news, like our gross domestic product in Oklahoma is outpacing the nation. There may be some good economic news on the horizon.
That is exciting.
And happy days may be coming
We're
here
going to
again
up our
real
ticket
soon.
projections.
But in the meantime, steady as you go, Lyric Theater in the Plaza goes all the time. And we really appreciate you taking time from your schedule to come by and say hi.
Oh, my pleasure. It's awesome. I love what I do. I'm very lucky.
I'm Beth Adele of Lyric Theater of Oklahoma, and thank you for joining us at Lyric's Green Room. Join us next time when we are going to talk with casting directors and choreographers all about what they're looking for when you audition for these big shows at Lyric Theater.